International Conference 2018 organized by Dhaka Chamber.
Assalamualaikum, very good afternoon. It's still afternoon, I think, is it? To all of you. And thank you very much for joining this session on sustainable jute pulp. We are overrunning by more than an hour. I'll try and keep it very short. At least I won't be speaking very much, but the speakers are most welcome to have their say. Let me introduce all our guests here today who will speak. The keynote presentation will be by Dr. Hussain Zillur Rahman, Executive Chairman of PPRC. He needs no introduction to all of us. Dr. Mubarak Ahmed Khan, Scientific Advisor, Bangladesh Jute Mills Corporation, has been much in the news recently for very good reasons. Ms. Bani Amin is not here. Ms. Shaila Khan, Assistant Country Director and Advisor, Business Development and Partnerships, UNDP. Mr. Paul Bundick, Chief of Party, Agriculture Value Chains Project, USAID. And Ms. Reena Parveen, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Textiles and Jute of the Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. It is somewhat appropriate that I'm perhaps chairing this session because when MCCI was formed in 1904, it was actually formed as a chamber of jute manufacturers and traders mainly, and based in Narayanganj. So although when President of DCCI, Mr. Abul Kashim Khan, mentioned that I should be chairing a session on jute, I said really not my particular area of expertise, but it seems fairly appropriate at the moment. Few statistics, I'm sure Dr. Rahman will be giving more, but I believe that about 40 million people in Bangladesh are directly or indirectly involved in the jute sector, and Bangladesh is currently producing 33% of the total jute in the world and exporting 90% of the raw jute produced in Bangladesh. I don't know if these figures are correct. They're all Googled. So if they're not correct, then please blame Google and not me. Jute production has been rising, but what we are now looking forward to is more value-added products for use both within the country and outside the country. So without more ado, I'm going to hand over the podium to Dr. Rahman.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to everyone. Well, I'll start out by congratulating Dhaka Chamber and its President and all the directors for this 60th anniversary celebration I remember I was there, joined you also on the 50th anniversary. And also remember that in 2010, 5 years before the SDGs were formulated, we, together with Dhaka Chamber, we formulated Bangladesh 2030 program, just for the historical record. The topic today is jute, and I wanted to sort of put it in a slightly larger sort of canvas. The title, as you can see, usually when we refer to jute, we talk about golden past, golden future, golden past, etc. But I think it's appropriate that today, as we are celebrating 60th year of DCCI, and as Bangladesh is looking forward to a middle income dream, we need to think, rethink sort of familiar ideas in a very unconventional way. Jute is an agricultural product. We have been trained to think of agriculture as the backward sector. It is the left behind sector. It will not really catch up, etc. The basic idea I'm trying to push is that agriculture in Bangladesh has the potential to be a growth driver rather than just a source of food security. And in that context, jute can emerge as a new growth driver. And that's the point I'm saying, that let's finish our literary sort of romance with the idea of jute as our golden past, and let's start a business discussion about the possible golden future centered on jute. That's the point. And next slide, please. I also want to put you to a larger canvas again. Jute is, in a way, very central to our history. If you look at, I see actually 3 waves where jute has captured the imagination. Our fathers and our grandfathers, the Bangladeshi middle class, actually emerged when the subsistence agriculture of this part of the world first had the taste of a commercial crop, which was jute. Commercialization agriculture, way back in the early 20th century, late 19th century, began the process of agricultural modernization in Bangladesh, and began to give that money by which the farmers could send their children to the cities to become the new middle class. That's the type of history with which jute comes to Bangladesh actually. That was the first wave. Of course, the Great Depression of the 1929 really dealt a very great blow to these farmers. A lot of them went to indebtedness, etc. The second sort of wave came in the 50s and 60s, when then Pakistan was trying to industrialize, and jute was the basis on which industrialization actually began in Bangladesh context. That was the second wave. And I was very astonished. I was in Khulna related to a work on this just 2-3 days ago. Even a person like the Aga Khan was an early investor. 2 of the mills there, Crescent and People's Mill, were actually established by Aga Khan in 1957. So jute, first round of industrialization in Bangladesh, again centered on jute. But after that, jute went into a decline because of technological reasons. Plastic came, etc. Artificial fibers came. Jute's traditional standing actually lost out. But now I see there is a potential new third wave for which Bangladesh can aspire to, centered around jute. Because of climate change and environmental concerns, jute has suddenly become much more attractive, has become an attractive business proposition, not a literary sort of interest, a business proposition. Because globally, for various reasons, jute's demand has picked up. Even, luxury cars interiors, they're trying to make with jute, blended jute products, etc. So there is a potential, and I would like to really push an idea in Bangladesh that the discussion about jute should not be just about one or two little demands to the finance ministry or the jute ministry. It should be about the potential of jute as a potential new growth driver for the Bangladesh economy. That's the context in which today's conference makes actually sense. Let's move to the next slide. I have not too many slides. Next. The new relevance of jute. As you can see, climate change has made jute newly relevant. And there are three environment relevant qualities of jute. Its requirement for fertilizer pesticides is much lower than other crops. Its products are biodegradable. And I'm told that it consumes greenhouse gases. Carbon capture actually is one of its qualities. So that's it has these environmental friendly qualities. Also 4 economy relevant qualities of jute. I think as Nihad was mentioning, there's a lot of people employed, a lot of across the rural areas. So jute it does boost rural incomes and employment. It is also Bangladesh among the we are perhaps the second after in terms of producer, but our quality of our jute fiber is recognized is a very high quality. That's why there is still a very strong demand for raw jute export because of the quality of the fiber. And if you're thinking of new jute-based industries, in contrast to say RMG, value addition here is almost 100%. I mean, that's another economic attraction of the item. And of course, it supports the green economy. And I think the other point to make is that a Bangladeshi scientist, Maqsood Kamal, who unfortunately is no longer with us, he has pioneered this genome sequencing, which has opened also many new technological possibilities. Actually, people from the Bangladesh Jute Research Institute are also here. They have also been doing a lot of innovative work here. Next. Now, in terms of the state of jute production, this is just to next. Just a quick, before that, yeah. This is just some facts and figures, unless you provide some figures, people might feel cheated that we were just told some, no figures were there. Jute is a regionally concentrated crop, essentially around the 2 banks of Padma, and production takes place, and that's what, there are 20 districts actually which are, as you can see, the figures. Now, of course, we are nowadays talking about jute revival. Next slide, please. We are talking of jute revival. Where do you stand? There are 3 frontiers on which this revival is proceeding. One remains the traditional one, which is high quality raw jute and jute yarn. The second is a jute bags. The Bangladesh government has made a mandatory packaging act in, I think, 2010, which has given a boost to a new economic sector centered around jute bags. And of course, there is the third frontier, is the non-traditional items. Many things, there are handicrafts are well known, even charcoal, which is a part of the cosmetic industry, from the jute burnt jute stick. That's something happening. Car interiors, blended jute fibers, there are many possibilities. So on frontiers, the jute revival story is proceeding. And there has been supportive policy, as you can see, Mandatory Jute Packaging Act 2010. There is a rule in 2014 which has mandated that 19 items are to be packaged in jute bags. And jute policy of 2016 has been promoting the non-traditional products. In fact, there is a unit called the Jute Diversification Promotion Center, whose chief is actually one of the panelists here. The interesting thing about jute also is that it is not just an export item. The jute as a product potentially addresses both the domestic market and the export market. So it has, even if export markets are opening up slowly, the economic sector can take off, because there is a vast domestic market opportunity. Okay, next. So 4 challenges in terms of the jute revival. One is that though there has been a revival and production has picked up, even productivity has gone up a little, but at the level of farmers and traders, there is great price and income uncertainty. So there is a social dimension there, and there are reasons, of course, why this is happening. The second big challenge, which I'll come to later, that my big point about the entire jute revival issue, there is, of course, the fiscal challenge of public sector mills. We have what, I think 22 mills, is that right? So 22 public sector mills, unfortunately, going to analysis, should they be fiscally losing? Those are the questions we need to ask, but it's the fiscal challenge. The third issue is that there is a huge ministry, but the policy oversight is fragmented. For example, the Bangladesh Jute Research Institute is actually under the agriculture ministry, not the jute ministry. Likewise, there are many such fragmentation in the policy oversight. But the point which has really excited me to get a bit more engaged on this issue is to think about all of these issues are being discussed last 7-8 years. All these are being discussed. But I think for us, thinking strategically, the issue is there a game-changing agenda centered around jute? Incrementally things are happening. You know, export is slowly rising, production is rising. But is there a game-changing agenda which can catapult jute to a growth driver status a la the RMG type? That's where I think the very interesting thing can, the discussion goes. Next. Most importantly, what you need, there are 2 broad policy agendas centered around it. One is about loss-making public sector
was 962 million. Before that, 918 million. So there's a significant growth every year. The other thing is that we still import 700 to 800 million dollars worth of viscose made of wood, a lot of which can be replaced by jute. And the last thing you said is that we spend money importing jute pulp. And, about import. For the jute export dollars, which is and very everything seems yes, everything is this working? Yes, everything seems to be dwarfing. Everything seems to be getting dwarfed by governments, but we need to support these other products and grow them as well. I have the pleasure now to introduce Dr. Mubarak Ahmed Khan, the scientific advisor at Bangladesh Jute Mills Corporation, and he has just handed this jute bag. I mean, jute poly bag. Would one? I never thought I'd see something like this. Dr. Khan and all the speakers, may I please request you to limit your speeches to about 6 to 7 minutes. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Chair of this session and panelist and distinguished guest, print and electron medias. Assalamu alaikum. So the time is very short. Only we read from student life, write an essay on jute, nothing else. So, but jute is the cash crop we call the golden fiber of Bangladesh. Nowadays our minister said the golden bar, but think about the single crop has the single ministry in Bangladesh. And the International Jute Organization, IJST, now there is no IJST or IGO, but there is a JAC. JAC means jute, abaca, cotton, and kenaf. These allied fibers, they make a new organization which is situated in Netherlands. So why jute is diminishing its values? Already our keynote speaker spent very much. I speak about it. It's because jute cannot play with the polypropylene and polyethylene. Because polyethylene and polypropylene is God blessing, so far I think. Because it's very cheap, whatever you want, you can make it, you can recycle it, but jute cannot play with these types of synthetic fibers. So that's why jute is emerging, and the polypropylene and polyethylene played last 4 to 5 decades. But nowadays the environmentalists and the consciousness peoples, they think about this. The one statistic says in 2040 the fish in the sea and the polythene, the sea is more or less same. So how you can see this polythene and polypropylene is creating the problem all over the world, not in Bangladesh only, the or storage blockage. But you think about it. And the solution is jute cannot play with the polythene polypropylene. So if you want to play with the polythene polypropylene, you need something same types. You cannot play with the cricket player with the football player. So you need the same player. So that's why we need something. It's looking aesthetic view should be like polythene and polypropylene. As I said, this bag is made of jute. This is fully biodegradable. It is 1.5 times higher than polypropylene bags. When it burn, it makes ash. So this is totally biodegradable, environment friendly. This is the emerging products, and this product is developed in Bangladesh. if it's developed in the European country, the polythene polypropylene, it be banned. And only sometimes I said, I speak in Bengali, যে পাটেরও দুর্ভাগ্য আমার মতো জন্ম বাংলাদেশে. So that is why, because I worked last 30 years, 32 years on with this jute when I was Atomic Energy Director General. So I retired from that. After that, then I joined as a scientific advisor at BGMC, the Ministry of Textiles and Jute. So this is the practical point of view why jute is losing its properties. But why jute? This keynote speaker said this jute pulp about this. Why? Why is it so important? Because we have to know, and we have to know the properties of the jute. We have to know the chemistry of the jute. Jute contains 72% cellulose, which is the main constituents of the pulp. And rest 10% is lignin and 20% is hemicellulose. This 10% lignin is 5 times higher than the jute itself, the cost. It's a biopolymer. This keynote speaker said that it makes it cosmetics. You cannot make any shampoo or any cosmetics without lignin. So how valuable products this lignin? So if you make the traditionally the pulp chemical method using xanthane, the carbon disulfide, which is banned already, so you cannot collect the biopolymer, the lignin. So you have to have developed new method where we can collect all the parts. We can use whole jute, but its constituents. So that's why we also already developed some, because chemical method takes 48 hours to get cellulose from the jute. On the other hand, we can get cellulose from the jute only 45 minutes. We developed in our laboratory. So without any chemicals, simply sodium hydroxide and HCl, that is hydrochloric acid, nothing else. So this is the method we developed. So jute is only not jute. Jute has its 3 constituents very valuable, and hemicellulose used as a biofiber, biofertilizer. So you can make it like tablet, then you can put into the plantation. It will take very good fertilizer and biofertilizer. So these are the techniques. And on the other hand, if you collect cellulose from the wood, nowadays all over the world, jute, cellulose pulp, wood pulp, and making this paper, all they're going to use wood pulp. Only 30 to 32% cellulose contain a tree, and one tree is at least 15 to 20 years required to produce the cellulose, massive cellulose. Otherwise, you'll get the hemicellulose. And on the other hand, jute only 90 days, you'll get 72% cellulose. So you can understand that is the jute is important. And that jute is grown in our country. This is the blessing. And jute is like us. The climate of Bangladesh is the very suitable for growing the jute. And now I want to talk about, discuss about presentation, keynote presentation. Okay. So that presentation, actually green jute is not the real raw materials for jute pulp production. Because BCI already started one jute pulp or paper making industries. During the Esad period, I forgot the time, and that was closed. Because it's very difficult to remove the chlorophyll, with the greenish item, this raw jute contain, and the stick and the jute ratio is 22.5:1. And this properties is very different, jute stick and jute fiber. So when you mix, remove this chlorophyll, the paper quality is not good enough. So that's why it is not cost effective. Again, to remove this chlorophyll, you have to have used benzene or carbon tetrachloride. It's very, very much dangerous chemicals. So that's why it is not suitable. Sorry to say, sir, this is not the suitable for making the jute pulp from the green jute. And jute is a seasonal crops. So it only 3 months you'll get the jute. Rest of 9 months you have nothing to do with these machines. Okay, sir, say something. And I'm just concluding on things. So we have to study the jute and jute properties. At least I recommend to the committee to develop some curriculum or to department. Those students can study about jute in the universities. And sir said already the composite materials. We had already experienced to make the car bodies and internal panel of these train internals. So we have these products. So thank you very much for giving me the time. And again, I thanks to DCCI inviting me as a speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Khan. I'll now give the floor to Ms. Shaila Khan, the Assistant Country Director and Advisor, Business Development and Partnerships, UNDP, Bangladesh Country Office.
And my time starts now.
Your time starts now, and I might be more ruthless in cutting you off.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to be here. I recall that similar to this kind of seminar which was Jute, last time, this time around, that it was a very emotional attachment that I have with this sector. And when I was called in to be part of the discussant, I thought it's no more emotions, it has to be. I would like to say that, again, coming from emotions, but how do I see? I was completely struck when, and I must say it is better to be late than never, looking at what it's written there, that growth driver for Bangladesh. In my point of view, it is not just now. It was, it is, and it has great potential. And I take fellow panelists to mentioned about 22 have now jute mills. We had 77. And the golden era, then when 77, on an average that each jute mills had about 3,000 to 4,000 workers. They used to have 3 shifts. And it was, if I look at this non-compliant tariff issue which we faced for the RMG sector, it was fully compliant. For the workers, it had schools, it has medicines for the judicial workers, both for the workers and the officers, senior, junior, everywhere. Now, we have also said that Zilusa mentioned, the learned panelist, that we have lost it because of this synthetic and all other plastics. If you ask me, I could be completely wrong, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that is it really the cause that because of the synthetic things and this all the polythenes were there and we have lost the market? I do see that was the case. See, coherent, and we talked about technology. something we did not invest. We had a chance to make diversification, but we did not. One of the diversification that we have made is the ready-made garments. All industries, it was more of a vertical, and jute mills was very much horizontal sector. I would say that it had competitive or comparative edge. Now, what has happened? It's a bygone. But here is an opportunity. If I really look from the SDGs lens, and it has great potential. We talk about Goal 12, responsibility and production, sector, and the pulp which Sir was mentioning, that about green growth. Which other sector than the jute itself can really prove the best, and which is extremely important for Bangladesh when the world is really finding which sector could be green and clean. I think we have it already here in Bangladesh, that we need to grow faster. We talked about, or it is the diversification. In the jute sector itself, there are so many sub-sectors which we can focus on to have this diversification on its own. Pulp is one, and I think I was saying it is about 700 or 140 diversified products that we can have from jute. But only pulp and the paper is the, I would say, the new entrant, but indeed the feasibility. And it was really interesting to see the potential of this paper, that, sorry, the poly bags, you know, still we say poly bag, but you were talking about some very technical terms that can be used. But the point here is, again, the policy coherence. If how far, how much we could advocate for the products that we have, be it paper, be it your paper. And you were emotional that, you know, if it was a different scenario, if you were somewhere else, this could have been, you know, marketed well. But I think that we should be, as a Bangladeshis, and the audience that we have, we need to champion our own products. No other than us who can champion our products. And that's how that we can promote and take it further. In terms of, I think in the last session, they were talking about employability, they were talking about opportunities that a sector which would have labor intensive, and that's a reality. We talked about all this fourth industrial revolution, which and where the jobs will be taken up. But there are sectors, the reality in Bangladesh is we cannot change over time and overnight and get into the ICT. What we have done is great, but there are rural Bangladeshis need to catch up, get into a phase or where they can really get into this whole fourth industrial revolution. But this is labor intensive that we can really do. Before Naindappa really shuts me up, I just want to say few things, that if jute is the next economic growth driver for Bangladesh, then there is a huge potential that not to rely on or putting all the eggs in one basket, which is the case in right now, the RMG and a few more, but this will be the value addition to the growth basket. And finally, I would like to say that we have talked about jute is the golden fiber. We have written immense essays on jute, parter upore likhechi. But I would say it's not just a bar, gold bar, or a golden fiber. If it is gold, and it is gold, the gold mine here is right in Bangladesh. We have the gold mine. That's something that we can really capitalize on. And the choice is ours. Either we make it and capitalize this whole, I would say, the opportunity where green growth is talked about, or break it, that it will be too difficult for us then to really compete with the future market, and of course to have jute as a potential sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Khan. Before I hand the floor over to Mr. Paul Bundick, I just want to say something. I come from an area very close to Dhaka, just across the Shitalokka River, and I grew up with 5 massive jute mills around there. And today, of all the 5, only one really functions. One in the private sector really functions. It's very, very sad. I was driving past, one of the great jute mills of past, Mr. Kamran Rahman will remember the cooperative jute mill. And there's this huge area which is very silent. These trees witness to what in the community. Thousands and thousands of people who I saw as a child, they're just not there anymore. So the jute sector can be a driver for employment also in this country. I now ask Mr. Paul Bundick to address us. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. I direct a project of USAID here in Bangladesh, which deals with a number of value chains, one of which is jute. And our purpose is really to transform the way the market works in those sectors to bring benefits to farmers, as well as all the producers, processors, and all the actors in the value chain itself. So jute, first, having said that, I manage a technical team, and I am no way a jute expert myself. In fact, I had a hard time recognizing a jute stick the other day in Rajashai Market. I thought it was a jute stick, and it turned out to be a bamboo pole. But so I want to discount any idea that I really am a jute expert, but just share perhaps some of our experience with our team members of what we've come up with in terms of how we think the jute sector will develop. I share the sentiments of Dr. Rahman. I think that with the environmental crisis and the shifting, really the plastic crisis in the oceans now, I think you're going to see rapid change, outlawing plastics, the move toward biodegradable wrapping materials. It's going to be accelerate in the next decade, especially as we begin to understand how toxic plastic is when it gets in fish, and we start consuming it, and it has health effects, and it will be right up there with climate change as an urgent thing to solve. If we consider the jute sector here, and there's a lot of, I do agree that it has big potential. But I think we have to deal with where we are now in looking at the jute processing and jute production here. I'm no expert, but by traveling around, we operate only in the southern districts, not the northern districts of Bangladesh. But traveling around, I must say the processing is quite rudimentary. It's harvested and put in water, and separated, and there's a threat to the water. The clean water makes better quality jute, but a lot of places don't have clean water, and fish get the wildlife gets hurt, the fish stocks and everything like that. So we've got to really address how the system works now, what's holding it in place, and in order to transform it going forward. So I would kind of wager that the place to transform this sector is changing the business model of the mills. Because right now the mills are buying only jute, and the farmers are using the stick. They're only buying part of it, right? They're using the stick for either fuel or construction, and they're using these kind of rudimentary methods to kind of process, and with varying degrees of quality, and the mills get it separated. I think if the mills were to adopt new technology, new retting technologies that could actually buy the jute with and process, buy the whole crop, not just this, and leave the stick in the farm, but buy the whole crop from the farmer, begin processing it, and creating new products like we've seen here today, and use the stick for activated charcoal or some higher value kind of toner applications around. I think then you would see market signals going back to the farmer, right? Because right now the market signals are what can I sell? I have to do this traditional method and sell it to the mills. So until the mills change their business model and start kind of seeing the opportunity here and sending signals back to the farmer, we're not going to see change and transformation of the sector. I don't believe. I put it there. I put it out there. So I see a real big need for this, looking at how we do separate the various elements of jute. We were talking about all the chemical qualities and the pulp and all this, and that is done with more sophisticated processing technologies at the milling process. The problem is our mills are still back in the 19th century in many ways, right? And the business models are around that. We need new investment in the milling sector with a business vision, with these new product ideas, these new kinds of technologies and what have you. Then what happens? Then that will create demand for new seeds, new improved seed varieties from farmers, higher productivity. It will cut down on water pollution, because they'll buy the whole jute. It will start changing the way jute is produced and processed in Bangladesh. Anyway, I kind of have one question for the professor here. Is there a process now to commercialize these new plastic surrogates? Jute surrogate, I don't know what you call them. They mimic plastic, but they're jute.
Well, I think the professor can respond when we.
Oh, okay. So anyway, that's pretty much all I had. But because I think we need to view this thing as how do systems change, and you've got to look at key leverage points to actually transform the system. But by looking at just helping farmers do more and continue processing in the same way, it's not going to change the structure of the system. Focus on the leverage point of the mills, change their business model, get some investment there, new technology, and will drive change in the sector.
Thank you very much indeed, Ms. Pathak. I would like to hand the floor over to Ms. Reena Parveen, the Additional Secretary, Ministry of Textiles and Jute.
Last speaker of this session. Let me allow some more times to discuss about jute sector development, because we are non-stop speaker on jute issue. One call is jute mine, gold mine. First, I would like to congratulate DCCI, a vanguard, for promoting private sector in Bangladesh on its 60th anniversary. I would like to commend for the important contribution it has been making in a wide range of areas like policy reform, taxation system, trade and PPP. As we witness with immense satisfaction, DCCI's 60th anniversary coincides with the gradual process of Bangladesh from the LDC's bracket. I profoundly thank DCC to organize this international business conference, and I am delighted to be invited to this thematic session on sustainable jute pulp paper and jute sector development, which deeply interests me as the ED of JDPC and the Additional Secretary of the Ministry of Textile and Jute. This year's World Environment Day's theme was Beat Plastic, Plastic Pollution. And when there has been a global consensus that we are on the edge of a plastic calamity, and when it is recognized globally that the world needs a whole rethinking of the way we produce, we use and manage plastic, I do not think that we should dwell anymore on the question, why jute? I would rather suggest stimulating the discussion to find the answer to the question, how jute? I would rather suggest I should commend the keynote paper presented by Mr. Hossein Jillur Rahman, which precisely highlighted the prospect of jutes becoming a new growth driver of the Bangladesh economy. I must say we are blessed by nature's bounty, our own jute, and we must extract its full potentials, not only to add our economic growth, but also to save our environment, our ecology, our soil, our oceans, and our own health. I would like to echo Mr. Rahman's observation that reversing the decline, jute is increasingly gaining traction in terms of its increased and diverse use. Fortunately, the demand of jute is growing not only due to its eco-friendly, biodegradable characteristics, but also for its increased techno-commercial cost competitiveness as opposed to synthetic fiber. He mentioned a political economic perspective where the potential of jute may have been a hostage to a legacy burden, as the public sector jute mills have been continuously incurring losses. And to overcome this legacy burden, I believe it is the time to overhaul our whole approach and address the issue of low productivity, lack of modernization, research for value-added and diversified product, respond to new market demand, etc. It is heartening that the current government has undertaken various projects such as conducting more research, formulating new regulations, reforming jute mills, and imposing eco-tax on polythene to encourage people to use jute products. Bangladesh export is highly dependent on the single item, that is ready-made garments, which is earning 81% of our total export, and also export is heavily concentrated in two markets, US and the EU. The sector has set a $50 billion export target in 2021, which may be difficult to achieve but not impossible. But if we can expand the market to new destinations and to secure a higher level of value addition, move to produce high-level apparels. Hence, to increase the sustainability of our export, we must diversify our jute export basket. And there is immense opportunity to develop the jute sector as an additional and formidable growth driver. As the country is set to graduate to a developing country, jute can offer us a package of opportunity to complement country's growth in the context of SDG and climate change, and like earning foreign currency, generating employment, etc. As our country is elevating to a middle income country's status by 2021. The revival of jute sector is contingent upon the innovation and diversification. And one of the most potent items can be jute pulp. I recall DCCI organized a seminar on eco-friendly pulp and paper processing from jute in May last year, where experts expressed optimism about Bangladesh's capacity to become a major pulp and paper producer from green jute, which cannot save forex spend on import of these items, but can also earn the same through export the surplus. It is encouraging to learn that an expert team formed at the advice of PMO viewed that producing pulp from rated bast jute fiber rather than the stem and core would be feasible. Also, in the search for a potential long fiber substitute for softwood pulp, most published research suggests jute fiber as an absolute solution. While I agree with the potential of jute pulp as a game changer in the revival of the jute sector, having tremendous strategic advantages, I would like to point out that although its research on potential of jute pulp paper are promising, but it may take a while for a researcher to complete their work. We may also need technical support from the abroad. It may also be necessary to formulate new law, as mentioned by Mr. Rahman, considering the prospect of pulp. I may add here that if jute pulp is used in making paper, it will not benefit our environment but also provide a big relief to the jute farmers who, despite good harvest, not in a position to claim fair price because of shrinking market demand. Let us all be reminded here today that our jute sector continued to survive despite lot of challenges only thanks to resilient farmers who never stopped growing jute, a major cash crop for over 3 million households. It is time to do our bit, complement their relentless efforts, making the jute sector one of the key drivers of the economy through innovation and diversification. As we eagerly expect the research work on paper to be completed in not too a distant future, the relevant stakeholders may be required to work on a targeted roadmap to make the best use of innovation from the green jute because of supply side advantage coupled with the low cost of growing jute. Chances appears very bright for the innovation to come into existence successfully. While protecting the interest of the jute growers, it is expected to play a vital role in revitalizing the jute mills in both private and public sectors. I stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, the Additional Secretary. We are actually doing okay for time in the sense that I was given an hour and 15 minutes and we have one speaker less, so we have about 20-25 minutes left for some questions and answers. Before that, quick 2-minute response to the question, Dr. Khan, that was raised by...
Thank you very much again for your questions. This is only developed in a laboratory, but now we are producing this polybag in semi-pilot scale. It is not the pilot, full pilot scale. Per day we can produce 2,000 to 3,000 bags at this moment. So our government, present government take the initiative to commercialize this product, particularly Ministry of Jute and Ministry of Textile and Jute under BJMC, and as I appointed over there to commercialize this product. And one memorandum of understanding was signed by the Putamura, the private company of UK. They're going to give us the technological and machinery support based on my idea. So that is up to this process. But last parliamentary standing committee meeting, they forced that within 9 months to commercialize these products, because this is highly demand all over the world. It's not only my, but now it's a demand through our government as well. Thank you.
I'm going to use this this mic to sort of conduct the question-answer session because I think we're slightly short on hand mics. Anything from the floor? But please limit your comments to 1 to 2 minutes.
Thank you.
And please introduce yourself.
Honorable panelists and honorable audience, this is Chief Scientific Officer, Technology and Director, Bangladesh Jute Research Institute. Actually, I think the green jute means the whole jute plant dry and contain 10% moisture, and that 10% moisture content jute plant is bone dried, and that bone dried is possible for making pulp. And in the jute mill, the wastage yarn, rope and wastage material also used as a raw material for producing economic jute pulp. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. I want to...
Please introduce yourself.
Oh, this is Babul Chandra Roy, Advisor Research, Bangladesh Jute Mills Corporations. So, what our Honorable Sir Hussain Jalur Rahman said earlier, that jute can be used blending with other crops, right? Jute, cotton, or jute pulp with the others pulp. Because one steps has been taken by the Ministry of Textile and Jute, where jute can be used for producing viscose. Viscose is one kind of fiber, you know.
Yes, we've mentioned that.
Yeah.
Will be an import
So
substitution.
already we have submitted 2 concept paper. One for pulp from jute, jute pulp papers, one concept paper, another pre-feasibility study on viscose from jute.
Okay.
But the final study is being conducted in Finland and Sweden, right? The already the company who are conducting the research, they have already completed their laboratory research and they submitted the laboratory research report. Already we have got the report.
So what is the timeline for progressing further?
They will submit the final report this month.
Okay.
At the end of this month, where they mentioned that jute pulp and wood pulp can be used for producing viscose. Only jute pulp not enough for producing viscose, because they mentioned their report that jute pulp can be produced from dissolving pulp can be produced from jute, right? And alkali jute cellulose can be produced from dissolving pulp, and viscose can be produced from alkali jute.
Okay. So
cellulose,
basically
right.
we will need both
But
to mix both.
no. But they mentioned only 20% jute pulp can be used with the wood pulp, right? Initially. But they are conducting research. Initially, this rate can be increasing.
Thank you.
Gradually. So, number one, and number two, we have already taken another project, that is composite jute textiles, where 50% jute and 50% cotton.
Okay.
And it would be blended there, and we will produce denim and others home appliance textiles. Right.
Excellent.
Thank
We
you
look
very
forward
much.
to that. Gentleman here. The speakers and the keynote speaker may comment at the end of.
I am Siddiqui. I was discussing with Dr. Sanjil on this charcoal made of wood, jute wood. Bangladesh is now exporting charcoal or the ash from the jute sticks. They are exporting to China. Now China is banned. Now India and other country, they are taking this charcoal to make it high value product, activated charcoal, and the price they are getting now US dollar around $800 per ton. but after value addition, the price of extracted charcoal is minimum $3,500. So now around 30 industry here. Actually, it's not industry; it's small cottage industry. They are burning the jute stick and exporting to other countries. So it's a new value addition in a recent phenomenon within few years. So around 30 exporters now in this country. So it's a value addition. It can add some. It is a new addition to earn money from this jute. And regarding the other aspect, actually we are not getting the fair price from the jute, raw jute. We are exporting our raw jute to India. They are adding some value and exporting to other country. So we are not, even now, there is a anti-dumping duty on raw jute as well. But it's a blessings, I believe. The Bangladesh exporter will try to find the real market, who are the ultimate buyer of this jute and value-added product. And now we are talking about the nationalized industries, and actually nobody is talking about the private sector, newly established private sector jute industry. All are feasible, but the nationalized industry and old public private industries are not feasible here. So why don't we shut down one or two industry and earn some, sell it to the private sector and earn some money and invest in jute bag project or Sonali bag or Dr. Mahabub.
All right.
We should do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the floor? Yeah. Well, I am going to ask somebody to comment. Mr. Kamran T. Rahman, former president of the Jute Factories Association, and I believe he has some very insightful things to say about why jute hasn't worked.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm not quite sure whether I'm going to make a comment on that, but let me tell you,
No, because we need to know so that we can, address those issues.
Okay. Jute had been facing a lot of commercial problems, economic problems. Now, in one of the slides of Dr. Hussain Zillur Rahman, you showed that back in 2010 we enacted the Mandatory Jute Packaging Act. We thought that would be the turning point for jute, and it would ensure that all the bags will be used within Bangladesh. If that law was actually enforced right from 2010, I don't think any mill would have closed. Every single mill would have been running. Not only that, they would have required new additional machinery to see to it that we were able to deliver the bags that were in demand. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. Only in 2014 or 2016, I think, they started the enforcement, and by that time many mills were closed. Now, I'd been following Dr. Mubarak's work for a long time, since the 90s, if I can remember correctly, and he was working on jute and jute plastic and or substitutes for jute when he was working for the Atomic Energy Commission. I even went to his laboratory back then. I don't know if you remember, but when the news came about his new inventions or developments just a few weeks ago, I tried to find out if I had his number. Unfortunately, I had his old number on my phone, and he's still using that number, so I immediately called and congratulated him. Now, there are two issues over here. On sustainable jute pulp and paper, the issue, you see, we started the research on jute pulp and paper quite a long time ago. We were not able to commercialize it back then, probably because of the extraction of cellulose from the plant, or it wasn't enough to make the product sustainable or commercially viable. I would like to know whether I can understand that you have probably made it technically possible to produce a pulp and paper from bone-dried jute plants. But is it commercially viable? That is the issue to be addressed. If it is commercially viable, and I think that's the way forward. And the same thing goes for the plastic or jute plastic bag that you've shown. I'm very excited. I haven't touched it yet. I would like to touch it and see what it's like. I'll do it. Thank you. This is brilliant, and I can see you have made it technically possible to produce in the laboratory, but is it commercially viable? That is what we need to address, and that is something we should sharpen our focus on. If it is commercially viable, jute has a future, and a huge future for Bangladesh, not what we have been producing for decades and not what we are still producing in the mills, the bags. This is the future, if it can be commercially viable. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's very good to hear. I mean, I know that there's going to be one very avid customer of this who's sitting right next to you, which is Syed Naseem Manzoor, and I think Apex Footwear. I think every pair of footwear produced in Bangladesh should be wrapped in renewable jute packaging in the next 1 or 2 years. I will come back to all of you. I think we don't have any more comments from the floor. So let me start with you. But we will keep it, please use it, we will keep it short, maybe 2-3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kamra. So I have been working since 30 years on jute. You have visited my laboratory last times. I made the composite materials and the corrugated sheet for the household. I gave the name of Jutine. It's tin from jute. So that is also made of jute, and developed some other products, helmet, a bulletproof jacket. It's all things made up from the jute. And these products is just really commercially viable because the extraction of cellulose, as you mentioned, we use steam exploration method. So it needs only 8 minutes to break down the cell wall of the jute. Then only takes only 40 minutes to come out from the cellulose. And in that time we can collect the lignin and the hemocellulose. When I was serving as in Atomic Energy Commission, then I used radiation. This break down this cell wall is immediately with the radiation, high radiation. So then we can very fast extract the cellulose. But now I introduce again the radiation source. Nobody can come forward because it takes another 20 crores taka. So that's why this is very easy to extract this cellulose. And if you want, you can visit my industries now. Is in the Lote Bawani jute mills. All the machinery is developed by local engineer based on my idea in continuous production. So you can see that's the possibilities and other things. So this is recyclable. So if you want 5 minutes water soluble, so we can put into the after 5 minutes integrated. If you want the materials, is it 10 days, we can make the 10 days. If you want 1 year, so we can make this types. As the customer design, we can make the biodegradability, change the biodegradability. This is the beauty. And now this is the only one product can brand the Bangladesh. Last word.
Thank you very much. That is, the prospects are absolutely immensely exciting. Ms. Khan, would you like to have a word?
This time I'll be very brief. 3 things which I think it's coming to my mind. When we talk about diversification, this jute has this whole new dimension to jute is, I would say, sustainable development growth. SDG is a new definition, and which has potential towards attainment of sustainable development goals, because it does merit for different aspects, whether it's poverty, employment. And finally, I would say that when we talked about this whole commercialization, that how it can really commercialize worldwide, but if we can start it, if it is done, then before we look into the export market, it's a country of 170 million people. If we decide to use your bag and the other jute products that we talk about, it would be a good testing ground, and that is not going to be less either, so it will be huge too. Thank you.
Thank you. I know I've gone back to the speakers, but one young gentleman here wishes to say something. I'm going to give you 30 seconds.
Thank you. My question is to Sir whether he has registered his patent on the jute. His innovation. I mean, as a lawyer. And second issue is that there is a law on mandatory jute packaging, but the the law, we often go to High Court and get a stay order for our clients. The reason is that, as we feel, for the clients, that it's, I mean, not enough due diligence is done before issuing any circular, because sometimes it may not be good for rice, or it may not be good for cement, for jute packaging. Probably before issuing circular, if it is meant some kind of due diligence conducted, that is good for the industry. Thank you.
Could you introduce yourself for the record, please?
My name is Mohammed Farooq Rahman, barrister at law.
Farooq is a very good friend and a colleague, and trust a lawyer to come up and ask about patents. But I'm sure that that will be under process. But the Additional Secretary Jute Ministry is here, and I agree with you that when these orders are given, they should be given in a manner that they are not challengeable in court, and that can be done with a bit of care. And I totally agree with giving these orders to promote our products. Mr. Bandik?
Yes, I would just say one thing. I think every time we talk about commercialization, we have to bring in the private sector, and there has been, following up your point, the jute is kind of almost a sentimental, protected public industry, and in a sense, with its own ministry and everything. How do we involve private sector innovation and kind of driving this sector in the future with innovation and all of this? And I think it will, first of all, it creates political issues about how you get out of the old system in a good way, but how do you bring in the private sector and get them serious about it and unleash their investment and creativity in moving the sector forward. Also on the commercialization of this bag, if the patent is held through a research institute, government research, it may be a long time before it's commercialized, because in my experience, government research institutes like to do a little bit more studying, a little bit more, get another grant before the commercialization moves forward. So I mean, I would accelerate the the private sector involvement in this. If I were a policymaker.
Thank you for that. I mean, I think this government is very keen to involve the private sector in the development work, and this will happen. And as long as there's money to be had somewhere, I think the private sector will find a way to get involved. Ms. Reena Parveen, Additional Secretary,
thank you.
would you like to comment, please?
I think 3 or 4 points is very important. When I think the private sector initiative in promoting jute sector, I feel really proud, because government is not enough to take all initiative for developing the jute sector, but I think there are some very crucial problem that we should address. That is the coordination between among the stakeholders, government, private sector, and other people who are involved in jute sector. So inclusive approach is very important. And secondly, we have many laws, but the implementation of laws is very difficult in our country. So Ministry of Textile and Jute enacted so many laws to promote jute, but sometimes we are very frustrated when we see these laws are not implemented in.
If the government is going to say that, then where are we going to turn to?
No, that is why the first thing I said that we have lack of coordination. If we sit together, this is an academic discussion, so we should be open in our discussion. That is why I raised the question.
And I think that was very well done.
So at first I made this point that we have lack of coordination. So if we sit together and share the problems among our stakeholders, then we can solve the problem. Because see, Mr. Rahman said that the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Textiles and Jute have no conversation. I really feel very embarrassed because the situation is changing, you know. That situation is not like that. We have this situation, we had this situation, but situation is changing. That is why I said this law implementation is very important. And in this respect, I think we should sit together. Otherwise, we can involve all people. So here, the farmer and the top level bureaucrat all are involved. So this is important. And last of all, I would like to say that we should have policy. We have policies, lot of policies, but we don't have policy space. Sometimes we feel we should go beyond the policy. That is why I think some issues should be addressed. And I think private sector come forward to sit with the person who are really love jute and jute sector. I am from the Ministry of Textiles and Jute, and also I am the Executive Director of Jute Diversification Promotion Center. And I am amazed to see that the women now are so advanced in making diversified jute products. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to empower women in this field, because the women who are very small capital, but now they can use their capital in jute sector. So inclusive approach is very important for us. So thank you very much for the private sector to arrange such international conference to share all these things with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for a very candid appraisal of what is happening in the policy space, and we look forward to you taking the lead in bringing all the stakeholders together. Finally, last but definitely not least, our keynote speaker.
Well, I'm certainly not a jute expert in any sense, and my association with this is very recent. I think I've been reinforced in my understanding that a different type of discussion needs to be promoted to get these issues on the ground. Like he mentioned that in 2010 the act was enacted, but we lost a window of opportunity because we didn't enforce it. We didn't do that because the policy understanding of the importance of this, they passed a policy, but they didn't really factor in the strategic importance of this, the potential economic significance of this. So I think one type of conversation which I would be myself hoping to be engaged in and try to drive is the type of a growth driver type of discourse. Where are these opportunities? Then there is the sector specific discussion where I understand the scientific community is, the conversation there is incomplete, so to say, it seems. And the issue there, I was initially concerned that whether the market is the problem, the existence of a market. but it seems that's not necessarily the main constraint. So whether the constraint is, as you were saying, whether it's the business model of the mills, or is it the transition of the research finding to commercial application, which one is the main bottleneck? I think getting a sense on that is, and perhaps that part of the discussion needs to be needs to continue more. And certainly I feel that I think there has been a endorsement and a confirmation that there is a potential out there which can be reaped if we get our act together and if we organize in a coordinated manner. We can move on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've had, I mean, at least for me, it's been a very interesting discussion. We keep talking about jute and chonaliage and part and jute mills and this, but to have everything brought together with a sharp focus on what the potential of this industry is, for me has been very informative. It remains for me to thank Dr. Sanjul Rahman, our keynote speaker, and our panel speakers, and also those who have participated from the floor, and all of you for staying at the end of a long day to hear this discussion. Thank you to Dhaka Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and congratulations on their 60th anniversary. It's been an exhilarating day of discussions. Jute was definitely in our past, and we've all grown up with it. All I can wish for is that jute be a vibrant part of our present and our future. Thank you very much.
Well, now it's time to recognize our guests with the crests of honor. Thank you, honorable speakers, for such a wonderful discussion. Now I request Mr. Kamrul Islam, FCA, Senior Vice President, DCCI, to come up on stage and distribute crests to our distinguished guests. At the very first, I request Mr. Kamrul Islam to hand over the crest to our session chair, Barrister Nihat Kabir, President, Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce and Industry, MCCI. And now, the crest will be given to our keynote presenter of the session, Dr. Hossein Zillur Rahman, Executive Chairman, Power and Participatory Research Center, PPRC. And now, the speakers. I request Mr. Kamrul Islam to hand over the crests to Dr. Mubarak Ahmed Khan, Scientific Advisor, Bangladesh Jute Mills Corporation, BJMC. Ms. Shaila Khan, Assistant Country Director and Advisor, Business Development and Partnerships, United Nations Development Program, Bangladesh Country Office. Mr. Paul Bandik, Chief of PERTI, Agricultural Value Chains, AVC Project, United States Agency for International Development, USAID. And Ms. Reena Parveen, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Textiles and Jute, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. I would love to request our speakers to remain on stage for the photo session. Ladies and gentlemen, with the permission from the session chair, here I announce the conclusion of Sustainable Jute Pulp Paper and Jute Sector Development in Destination Bangladesh International Conference 2018. I hope our audience enjoyed this wonderful discussion. Thank you all for joining here today. A very good evening to you all and have a good day. Ladies and gentlemen, I would request every one of you to go to the Hall of Fame to attend our next session on digital and innovation.